Hey guys, it's Mandy with Brickard Co. and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am a reseller and I do this full time, and I am found primarily on the app Poshmark. However, you can find me on a lot of other online selling sites such as eBay, Mercari, Etsy, and I do a little bit of Facebook Marketplace as well. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to hit that like button if you find this video helpful at any point in watching, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of this face. I have quite a few series that I do already, and I am a social worker by trade, and that is one of the things that's just near and dear to me is mental health. Back like last summer sometime, I had an idea to incorporate my past life as a social worker and my current life as a reseller into a wonderful series that I think will be great for everyone. I'm hoping that everyone enjoys this as much as I do, because I'm big on self-growth and self-care, self-improvement, and I've done a lot of that myself over the last couple of years, and I'm just really proud of where I've come throughout my personal journey, my health journey, my career journey. Everything just kind of feels like it's come full circle. And being as I have suffered from a lot of anxiety and some depression in the past, I thought, what better way to share some of my wealth and knowledge, not only as a social worker, but as a reseller? What better way to do that than to come up with some kind of series that can help other people along the way? So here we are in 2020, like 6 months after I initially started taking notes for this video. I'm on Instagram and I've grown quite a bit, and I'm noticing a lot of anxiety, honestly, not only in the people that I talk to via DM about Poshmark transactions or sales, but just about a lot of different things. And so I'm hoping that the timing of this is good for a lot of you. I thought what I would do is start a new series and really try to focus on working from home, reselling from home, and self-care, self-improvement. So I'm going to start off with anxiety. So today we're going to talk a little bit about, just as a refresher for everyone, kind of what anxiety is, what it looks like, anxieties that might be specific to resellers, and I found quite a few common themes actually, and strategies that we can start working on to handle some of those areas, because I am also affected at times by some of these. So this is helpful for me to grow as well. And then we'll talk about some of my favorite ways that I've used, my strategies that I use to combat anxiety overall, just in day-to-day life, and then also specific to reselling. So thank you guys for watching, and let's get started. Okay, so I think it's most important that we just start off with just like a little, I guess, refresher, an anxiety refresher. So grab a soda or a glass of flippin' wine and watch me kick my tripod. That was great. Let's try this again. I just needed to stretch my leg out and I kicked my tripod. So let's start this off with just a little refresher course on the fun topic of anxiety. So if you see me glancing down a little bit, it's because this is kind of an important topic to me, and I want to make sure that I get citations correct. And I am a mental health professional, so a lot of times people will preface videos with, I'm not an expert, but I'm actually still licensed as a social worker, and this is something that is very important to me to share with everyone. So if you see me glancing down and looking like I'm reading, it's because I've spent probably 3 days trying to make sure that I have the content right for this video, so that way it can be appreciated and hopefully put to use. Let's start with just talking about what anxiety is. Anxiety is defined by the American Psychological Association as an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. And what's interesting to me is I just read those words and I instantly start to feel a little bit more anxious, like my voice and my chest gets a little tighter, which is really weird. It's almost like the very suggestion of anxiety can make somebody feel a little bit revved up. So I found it really interesting that I came across a study that the American Psychological Association conducted, and it stated that in 2018, the participants in this study, 39% of them reported that they're experiencing higher stress levels than they ever have in their entire life. So I think that we live in a very busy society, and I think America specifically has a very ingrained culture that busy is success and busy is good. I thought that was very interesting, and I would be curious to see what 2019 numbers are and see kind of where we progress. I think it's really important to recognize that there's like day-to-day anxiety, generalized like feelings of anxiety, and then there are anxiety disorders. And I believe now there are 6 different anxiety disorders in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Typically, the golden rule, which is really easy to remember if for a non-professional, if you feel like something, whether that's your anxiety or depression or thoughts of self-harm, addiction, even like if you're questioning an addiction, if something interferes with your day-to-day functioning, if it's affecting your personal relationships, your professional relationships, that is when it is really important to seek help. Additionally, you know, if you're struggling with somebody who you're questioning if they're addicted to something, is it interfering with their daily life, their social, occupational, their daily functioning. I want to preface this with not everyone needs to go get help for a generalized anxiety disorder if they're feeling these symptoms, but if you're feeling these more often than not and you're feeling like they're interfering with your life, and I was a highly anxious person as a teen and young adult, and I'm not anymore. So there's definitely ways to make sure that you can get through this. That's not to say I don't suffer from symptoms of anxiety and have moments where life makes me so stressed that I feel like that generalized anxiety can come back and it kind of sits in and sets in for a week or two. Generally speaking, I feel like I have most of my anxiety under really good control without medication and really without noticing it day to day. And if you would have known me 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, anybody that has known me through the years can definitely testify to the fact that I have been a very highly strung and anxious individual, perfectionist. That's been a personal area that I've worked on very heavily for about 2 years now. So when you have a generalized anxiety disorder, you're feeling on edge 24/7. You can't control the feelings of worry and fear and doubt. You're finding that you're irritable with people that you love, with your coworkers, your children, pets. Your level of irritability is just like heightened. Concentration difficulties sleeping, and that could be falling asleep or staying asleep. All of these are normal symptoms of anxiety, but again, if they become persistent, extreme, and they're really disrupting that day-to-day life, then that's when it really is important to say, okay, what should I be doing now? I need to be looking at other strategies because this is affecting me daily. If that's the case, I recommend seeing a professional and really looking at strategies for your personal life that will help you. So backing up to just like general anxiety and what I call, you know, your day-to-day anxieties and stressors, I want to point out that when you feel anxiety, and we're not talking about generalized anxiety disorders, when you're feeling anxiety, that is your body telling you something is wrong. And that could be something social, that could be something that you're dreading or fearing. But if you're in a good position to do so, it can be a really useful tool to sit with that anxiety and kind of explore it and work through it instead of just trying to push it away or hide it. At times, it actually is beneficial to kind of work through those anxieties and talk to yourself, because sometimes our minds can be wrong and our hearts play into things. So keeping that in mind, if you take the time to work through your anxieties and figure out what your body is trying to tell you, sometimes for me, my body was warning me I was in toxic relationships and I was ignoring that, and it bit me in the ass every time. I really try to pay attention to my body now when I'm feeling anxiety and I can't quite pinpoint it, what my body is trying to tell me. Often there's a source of it somewhere around me, and I can work through that then. So let's talk about some kind of just basic traditional and non-traditional methods of combating anxiety. Like if you're starting to feel that increase in heart rate and you're starting and you want to catch that, and you do know that it's unnecessary or it's just poorly timed and you just can't honestly deal with it at the moment, I think one of the best things to do is just take a break and a change of scenery, go take a walk, some really, really deep breaths, and try to remove your mind from whatever situation it is that's making you anxious if you're able to for that moment. Additionally, I find that gardening is a long-term anxiety reliever for me. So it gives me some quiet time to think and reflect and really do some deep, deep thinking. I even try to not listen to music when I garden because that music can be a distraction from deep times of thought. And I have found that gardening, it really brings me a lot of peace mentally if I just listen to like the world and, you know, nature. And that worked really well until my neighbors behind me moved in and they have a yippy little dog. And now gardening isn't so fun. So hopefully we can strategize this summer so I can still get some peace and quiet, and I might have to defer to listening to music while gardening in my backyard. However, I am rambling now. So other things that I like to do are just taking a drive, like windows down, music up, cell phone away from yourself, and just like go. I think just like some heavy exercise can be really good. Taking a brief break from whatever it is that you're doing that's causing stressors. So if it's Instagram, you know, building up your Instagram account, that could be something that's causing you anxiety. Take a break from it for a while. Take social media breaks. Take Poshmark Closet breaks. Okay, so let's jump into some anxieties that might be specific to resellers. I have identified what I think are 5 different categories of sources of anxiety for resellers. So we will talk about each of those and some quick strategies that I can point you towards to investigate a little bit further that I think will help combat each of these areas. The first one is inventory and death pile related anxiety. So this could be anxiety produced by you walking into a room and seeing a very large pile of work yet to be done. This could be simply just needing to organize what you need to do as far as incoming inventory, and even starting the organizational process of that death pile can be anxiety producing. Additionally, anxiety from knowing what yet needs to still be done and listed could be another inventory or death pile source of anxiety. For me, this is probably hardcore, one of the ones that hits me the most. So I, for some time, was piling my inventory on a hope chest in my bedroom, and the mistake number 1 that I was making was I could see my inventory when I was going to bed at night and I'm trying to relax, and there it was staring me in the face, and it was just reminding me of the things that I didn't get done that day. I took that inventory and I hung it on racks in another room. So it's ready to go, it's ready to pull, it's ready to photograph in batches of about 20, or steamed, you know, it's ready to have that next step done, but I'm not staring at it in the meantime. For me, that has been an incredible stress reliever. And then additionally, I came up with some organizational systems for my incoming inventory. If I have an opportunity to source a great deal of amount of stuff, or I have a huge consignment batch come in, I have an area in my garage now that I can sort those items and begin to hang them up and process them, but they don't get intermingled with my other areas and they don't get put on top of it. I was finding that I had like a pile in my garage of the consignment, and I had a pile in my guest room, and I had a pile on my hope chest, and it was like everywhere I walked in my house, I was like ready to pull my hair out because there was things that were just like, you haven't done this yet, you haven't done this yet. My strategies, in addition to organizing the space so I don't have to visually stare at the space, was to set up more of a batch work type of process for listing my inventory. I try to photograph in batches of about 20 at a time. Then I will list at least 5 a day through the week. So that my hope is that if I batch 20 on a Sunday or a Monday, that'll get me through the week, and then I can do it again. Times I will photograph in addition to that. So I'm looking at a stack over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did 8 yesterday because I had some free time and I decided to combat my inventory pile. So some people have reported that just shifting their mindset and calling it a money pile or an opportunity pile instead of a death pile is actually something that has helped them. I know that that's used by quite a few people on Instagram and in Facebook groups, and they refer to it as a money pile. And I've adapted that as well because I think the term death pile makes it automatically something that is more negatively thought of. Other things that you could do is if you just wanted to get rid of the inventory because you stay out of my hot cocoa. Added my hot cocoa. Come here. Come see mom. Come see mom. He likes to drink my hot cocoa and my coffee. He's naughty. So additionally, some other strategies that I have come up with that you could do would be taking things to consignment to get some instant cash and remove some of the inventory from your house. You could have a garage sale or yard sale. You could donate a bunch that you feel hasn't moved and is just causing you a little bit of anxiety to see it in your closet regularly. You could find an accountability partner for listing, and this dog is so weird. Find an accountability partner for for listing and challenge each other to listing. You could set up a listing challenge. So this month of January, Poshmark actually provided a listing challenge spreadsheet. It's been circulating around on Instagram quite a bit, and I think it's been a great accountability tool for listing for a lot of people. And I actually have one up on a bulletin board, and I try to set a listing goal of 5 a day as it is anyway, but I think having that bubble sheet to fill in, something tangible to work towards, has been really helpful for a lot of people, and so have the incentives to win prizes, of course. You can set small weekly goals. So let's say you have several hundred items of inventory, and you set a small goal of, I just want to get through 20 items listed this week, and I don't care when it is this week. Then if you don't happen to get to it Monday, you're not stressed out about it and just feeling behind already. So maybe a weekly goal of 20 listings and just incorporating that into your week is another way you could do that. Stop sourcing until you've listed everything. And I know that's hard for all of us. I will tell myself I'm not going to, and then I see a thrift store and I'm like, I have to, I just for one, I'll be right back. You know how that goes. So I'm trying like hell not to do that right now. Having the philosophy of not allowing myself to source until I've listed has actually helped me to accumulate less items. So the exception to that is when someone dumps a bunch of consignment at my house and I'm instantly inundated with inventory. My strategy for that, like I said before, is just to have more of an organized process for that, where it's not overwhelming me when I go into my garage. So, okay, number 2 would be the post-sale anxiety. So this could be related to whether the package gets scanned in or not, whether it gets there on time, whether it arrives in the condition it's supposed to, whether it gets lost, whether the buyer feels that it was truly as described, how the buyer reviews it, if they're going to open a case, if they take the 4 full days to accept the package, and then additionally, if they do open a case, the anxiety that you might feel from the case being opened. I think all of those can be remedied by looking at 2 types of solutions. And number 1 would be examining things you can control versus not control, and really checking those thoughts and realizing which ones you have control over and not. So you can't control the postman or the weather. You can't control the day or the attitude of the buyer. You can't control their perception of softness. Looking at what you have control over versus what you don't, and really focusing on the aspects that you have control over. If you know that you shipped it in good condition and in time and you've done everything that you can, then you can utilize your faith and say a quick prayer and leave it to God and just let it go. Or, if you have another method of releasing it to the universe, then do that. But those are not often items we have control over. And so I think examining the need for control and how to relinquish control would be a really good starting point for those types of anxieties. Then also just really checking thoughts too. And so we're going to delve into that a little bit more later, what I talk about self-talk and thought traps and really what that means for anxiety in general, because it is a big contributor to anxiety. And so with a lot of these, I'm going to say check your thoughts, and we'll talk about what that means, a little bit more toward after we go through these steps. Next is sourcing anxiety. So this could be related to the disorganization that you see when you enter a particular thrift store. Maybe it's the time and effort that it takes to dig for inventory. Maybe it is not really knowing labels or where to jump in at a thrift store. It could be social anxiety as well, and that could play into all of this. When it comes to sourcing, and if you're feeling anxieties about sourcing, whether you're just getting started or a friend has asked you to come with them, or you've been doing this a long time and suddenly you're finding yourself feeling a bit anxious about the sourcing process, I think it's really important to dig into that and examine what is making you feel anxious. What is that trigger? Once you're able to identify that trigger, then finding some of the strategies that I'm talking about in this video. But if you have social anxiety, one option might be to actually source online. There's a lot of good liquidation options for that, or maybe possibly finding a local liquidation source, looking into what that business partnership might look like instead of doing the traditional sourcing that resellers do. If you have anxiety about the organizational aspect, because I do hear that overwhelms a lot of people when they go thrifting, I think that if you can find consignment stores or thrift stores in your area that you feel are well organized, or potentially try out retail arbitrage when they have a really good sale, that might be an option for you, as well as potentially looking at some of the online, options as well. I really, really like organization and clean spaces in my home. But I tell you, when I get out in the thrift stores, it's like, it just doesn't even matter. It's like treasure hunting. So it's not my house. I don't care if it's organized. Does anybody else feel that way? Like your house is super organized, but the thrift store stuff just does not overwhelm you at all, and you can just dig in there for days? Because give me a bin and I'll just dig. I'll look through every item. I don't care how it's organized or sorted, as long as nothing hurts me or is too gross. I don't care. Okay guys, we're going to need to break this into 2 parts, so stay tuned for part 2.